The perception of Sonic fans. How do people generally see Sonic fans? What traits do they assume of Sonic fans? What sort of person do you imagine when you hear Sonic fan? These are all questions you probably want answers to if you clicked on this video. Let's talk about it as a fan of Sonic for 20 plus years now. When you think of a Sonic fan, what's the image that comes to mind? Of course, for some of us, you probably think of some extreme weirdos tied to the community, like Mr. Sonichu himself, or the sort of people on Twitter who argue about Rouge's outfit endlessly. The current discourse, as of December 26th, 2024 that I see, is people uplifting the Sonic movie by pushing Disney's release down, Mufasa. Sonic's doing so well and Mufasa is not. Naturally, comparisons are going to be made for movies coming out on the same day as each other. It doesn't exactly give the best impression though, does it? There's a lot of negativity involved there, and almost nothing of the bits and pieces I've seen have been remotely constructive about Mufasa. It's simply sharing basic opinions that come across as flat as paper. Just as an FYI, I'm not expecting to see a full breakdown of Mufasa on Twitter. None of this current buzz is worth judging too deeply. The buzz of today will be tomorrow's forgotten conversation. There is something to be said about it though. In some posts, which are anecdotal evidence on my part mind you, I see people talking like the underdog has won or the tables have turned. They speak partially under the expectation that the Disney movie should have been good and the Sonic movie shouldn't have been, or at least not have been as good. There's a resentment in some of these posts, a venom present from the bite of their words. There's a disbelief, but also a happiness in that disbelief that Sonic is doing so well. Where does all this stem from? Well, I'd say the writing is on the wall. Sonic, as the face of his series, has had its fair share of ups and downs.
Rachel is so annoying. I heard you were talking shit about me. What the f-
We all know this. Some of these downs have been catastrophic, and have left marks that change how we all perceive the series. My personal feelings with Sonic Forces aside and what I believe it represents, I'd argue, objectively, Sonic Forces is, at minimum, a mediocre game. It is not a horrible cesspit of zero value. There are good ideas there, like how Sonic 06 has good ideas. However, when it came out, it was heralded as a return to a dark era of Sonic in some circles. Enough that someone like me, who mostly keeps to myself, generally knew about this sentiment. This, in it of itself, was caused by Sonic Lost World and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric coming out years prior, in 2013 and 2014. We had a brief levity with Sonic Mania's release, but Forces tanked the reputation right back down, in part due to the baggage of those other games. Sonic Lost World falls into the mediocre camp like Forces, while Sonic Boom was another Sonic 06 situation. It can be summed up as a few games good, a few games bad, in a revolving door fashion. Sonic can be great, but we also know he can really not be. Far from it even. The inconsistency with the brand is present in our mindset as fans. Unless someone's a diehard extremist that attached some part of their ego to a brand, we can all admit this ride has been a bumpy one. Funnily enough, Sonic is a brand that pushes out releases way too fast, and these releases themselves play a huge part in the psychology of Sonic fans, as well as how others perceive them. See? I was getting to a point with all of this. There's two camps. A rational side of the fandom that can accept the reality of Sonic as a brand, and then those who can't. Unfortunately, when it comes to fandoms, those extremist minority camps are often used as fuel to represent the fandom in a negative light. Remember Undertale? Sheesh. For the people who dislike Sonic, there's so many ways to point and discredit the entirety of Sonic's brand. And being on the receiving end of that, especially when you're not the culprit but just a bystander or a general fan, does make one a little jaded over time if you continue to engage with and see it. Nobody likes a property they enjoy being just shit on by the internet collectively, deserved or not. I can somewhat confidently say that the average Sonic fan that's been a fan for at least 5 years is a realist. Someone who doesn't hold their breath for releases and likely has a love-hate relationship with the Blue Blur. They never necessarily hate Sonic himself, but the games, his stories, and how dramatically his gameplay design can change between releases. Despite all of that, we love this blue spiny dude. Basically, we love him but not his actions. That doesn't answer the question of how do others see Sonic fans though. The most explosive, dramatic parts associated with something always end up defining it to some degree to onlookers without an interest in delving deeper. Despite Sonic fans, in my mind, being comprised of mostly passionate people with a good sense of humor, others see it differently. Sonic, who we once saw as cool in our lives at some point, probably didn't always feel that way. I'm willing to bet that you hid your love for Sonic at some point in your life from the people around you, because someone else at some point made you feel ashamed for liking him. Not on the level of being called a nerd for liking video games, no. What I speak of is internal shame from the gaming community itself. Like the act of liking Sonic reflects on your character somehow. Teenage and young adult years are particularly spent full of judgment, and if not actual judgment coming from others, this feeling internalized of being judged. Hell, social media is a space that rewards likability, which only amplifies that feeling of insecurity we feel judgment-wise. Yet, other games within the gaming community aren't seen as cringe. So why Sonic? Let's ask another question. Why would the gaming community itself shame one of its biggest representatives? In part, there can be some frustration that Sonic as a game brand reflects poorly on gaming as a whole. A household name like Sonic not being so hot alters the reputation of gaming as a whole. The other part of it is Sonic's character himself. He sells himself on being a cool guy, and convincing someone of all age groups that a character is universally cool is difficult. With so many creators imparting their vision of who Sonic is in Sega, as well as the changing times and sensibilities, some of Sonic's writing direction has him come off like he's trying too hard.
Yeah, I'll just stick with aliens if that's okay with everybody.
There's been a couple games now where his characterization feels like it misses the mark. Sometimes it feels like classic Sonic is cooler simply because he never lets loose a peep. What I'm saying is, this is a very difficult ship to keep on course, and Sega has regularly veered off course. People are justified in being mad that such a big piece of gaming representation is so inconsistent, and seeing a supposed logical fallacy with the fans defending the games can enrage some people. Why are they defending games that are so bad? Let's shift gears and talk about Mario for a moment. How do people view Mario as a series? I'd say consistent quality that focuses on its fun being polished to a shine. As opposed to Sonic's quality control, Mario's mainline entries are consistent. The most complaints I've heard in recent years is that some Mario games get stale with their formulas, but then they turn around and change it up successfully without completely altering the formula. Mario focuses on being fun, not cool as a character. He's full of whimsy, and captured within that quirky mustache is a childlike wonder and happiness. His design is out there and strange when you stop to think about it, but it feels like a child's imagined up scenarios coming to life when playing with their toys. It feels like a series that always gets their audience, on the same wavelength as them even. Comparing him to Sonic, Sonic feels like he's lost his footing over and over, and that he moves at a different rhythm to his entire fan base. Sonic is creative, perhaps even more so than Mario, but it's more unrestrained and unrefined. I think this vibe draws in its own crowd, particularly that of creative types. Not to say Mario doesn't have its fair share of creatives drawn to it, but Sonic's art community is bustling. Creative types are always misunderstood by others, because their expression tends to come from an internal world that they communicate through their art form. You can never really predict where the Sonic series is going next, and I feel like that resonates with artists and creatives. We're starting to get closer to an answer here. We have a community with a face that doesn't have a good reputation and tends to draw in creatives. That's part of it. Another factor is how Sonic's character draws in people on the spectrum. The inability to sit still and race around is something I frequently heard quoted as relatable to neurodivergent people. They feel like they're being represented and that they feel understood by Sonic. On top of that, neurodivergent people can find great success in creative outlets, since their internal world can be painted onto a canvas in a way their words might not be able to. Art isn't only pretty pictures though. It's stories, communities, and videos aplenty. The wealth of choice available to express oneself is appealing to those who struggle with quote-unquote normal modes of communication. It makes sense. Am I saying the Sonic community is full of antisocial people? No. I'm saying Sonic, as a brand, is a space that encourages freedom and creativity. Their games are almost always trying something new. It's gotten to a point where I wish Sega would go back to being more formulaic, because without an established formula developed, they're not able to flesh things out properly in my opinion. Here's another question. Do artists tend towards being social outcasts more than other hobbies? Yes and no. It depends on the sort of art form they're pursuing. When it comes to artwork, like physically painting a picture, it's not a particularly social process most of the time. Other people talking to you can even get in the way of your flow state. To get your internal thoughts onto paper, you need to have the space to think. Some art expression is an isolating process, like many other jobs or hobbies in this world can be. Art projects can also be more collaborative too, and are not solely defined as an introvert exclusive activity. So far, I've said that the Sonic community is full of creative, neurodivergent types of people that are drawn to it because of Sonic's character and how his games are designed. It is not solely made up of these people, but I'm arguing it's a space more welcoming towards it than others. I'm sure us more emotionally sensitive folk don't find the screaming ramblings of Call of Duty lobbies very welcoming, do we? Also of note, any series that has a younger audience will always have an immature side to it. Sonic's E for everyone, so everyone gets their say. Some people don't know how to define why they feel something is good or bad, nor do they know that expressing an undeveloped opinion like fact is seen as annoying in the best of cases. How we feel matters, but how our words make other people feel also matter. That's something we come to grips with when we get older. Now, let me repaint a clearer picture of what I'm saying. The Sonic series attracts an audience of neurodivergent, creative, and younger people. Let me ask you yet another question. Do you think the average person thinks about any of this when assessing others? That their communication style is just different rather than wrong or underdeveloped? My personal answer is no. Everyone can't know everything, and schools don't tend to teach too much about the intricacies of social dynamics. While math and science have dedicated classes, social development is something we're thrown to the wolves for. Trial by fire. This isn't even touching upon how your home life affects your social development. It's natural we have a hard time understanding each other. It's natural that something seen as outside the norm of typical communication in their ignorance is seen as weird or wrong. What I'm saying is, the Sonic community is seen as weird because they're attached to a series that doesn't always do well, and the people it brings in tend towards being social outcasts in one way or another. It doesn't even seem right to call it being a social outcast, because the internet has redefined our main mode of communication. There's so many communities available to us to socialize in that we can pick and choose which one fits best with us, rather than adapting to the people closest to us since they're all we have. You can be an outcast in one place, but beloved in another. Even my own answer to these questions is colored by my own bias from the spaces I choose to socialize in. Everything I say is my opinion, and when it comes to such a large group of people, no answer would be sufficient as to why people are viewed a certain way. Some people look at the Sonic community and see Sonic 06, Sonic Boom, Sonic 4 Episode 1, and think, wow, bad games. Why would anyone like Sonic?
That shit sucks. Damn.
Some people see some of the artwork that the Sonic community produces and judge it solely based off of that. I'm judging others from the inside of the Sonic community, trying to understand a multitude of people's perspectives based off of my own. I can guarantee you there are flaws to my perspective. Still, I think my own perception is worth sharing because I do try to put my best foot forward towards being open-minded and understanding others. People are on and off giving Sonic fans that weird side-eye out of ignorance.
Bombastic side-eye. Criminal offensive side-eye.
And I've even considered the fact that I could be looking at the extremist minority that's judgmental of Sonic fans. Maybe it's just that extremist group that thinks Sonic is cringe. People's opinions form also based on where they meet said Sonic fans. Meeting people through Twitter would likely lead to some very negative nerd stereotypes, but engaging with the community on a more positive front somewhere else will show people that Sonic fans are also just people. Now, let me answer the questions. What sort of person do you imagine when you hear Sonic fan? Well, me and you, I'd hope. Just people with likes and dislikes like anyone else. People that like something and allow it to be part of their identity, not because it defines them, but because it makes them happy and they aren't afraid to show that. Having the will to love something openly is something others who cannot do that might envy, but we are so much more than nerds splurging Sonic trivia at each other all day long. We are also those things, but, you know, that's not everything. The simple act of talking about Sonic makes us happy. Playing Sonic games makes us happy. Sonic makes us happy. That's all there is to it. Yes, I turn this piece into a dispelling of judgment and encouraging others to look at one another as people. That is my answer. The answers to those questions I proposed matter less than the message I wish to impart. None of it matters. Let people think what they want to think, and just be happy with your investment in Sonic if it makes you happy. If discussing how Sonic games these days upset you, or why this game is more enjoyable than the other one is important to you, there's spaces for that too. You can have almost any conversation if you go about it while being conscious of the feelings of others around you, and define your opinions beyond, "this is good because I say so." How do people see Sonic fans? Answer that question instead with another question. How do I see me, and do I love what I do? That answer is the one that matters. Do things you enjoy and smile. If other people have a problem with that, tell them nicely to go take a hike. That's about all I have to say about the subject. Low editing and just playing some games to put out something for the holidays. I know, I shouldn't be uploading anything realistically around this time. I should be taking a chill pill and enjoying time with my family. Half of me constantly guilt trips myself if I haven't made an active effort towards making a new video, but the other half of me also puts this out here for the people who need something to occupy their time with this holiday season. Not everyone has family to see and enjoy spending time with, and plenty of those people reside in the Sonic community. They're in every community, because it affects way more people than we know. Hopefully, this reaches who it needs to, and someone can look at themselves in a more positive light, even if it's just for one night or maybe an hour. I hope you enjoyed my sleep-deprived ramblings, and I hope you'll stick around if you made it this far. Subscribing would help me immensely, because I'd like to support myself and my family with it one day. I could have plugged this in the middle of the video, and I might in others, but interrupting real talk with shilling would have made me feel dirty. Anyways, happy holidays, and I hope you have a great day.